Yeah, that's right, Joy. I think we can go ahead and start. My name's Kevin Jackson. I'm the executive director of the Chicago Rehab Network, whose mission has been for the last 44 years of community empowerment and development without displacement, which is a very appropriate framework for our times and for much of our region. And it's been an honor to be a part of this organization. It's made up of the mission-based nonprofit CDCs, community development corporations that are dedicated to making neighborhoods thrive with affordable housing that is affordable to people in the communities today. It's a wealth of experience. Our work at the Rehab Network, just to remind people, is we don't hold real estate. We're about public policy, what's needed for the field. We're also about capacity building. We have some of our trainers with us today. It's a wealth of experience with 25 years into the empowerment series. We have a wonderful class going on. In no small part, we've got support from IDA for our training. We look to make sure we're thinking about the analysis, trends, and issues of the field with our reports. And people know us for our Affordable Housing Fact Book, our work with the city in terms of how their quarterly reports are proceeding with the goals that they have in their plans, and whatever we can do to complement the work of the field. With that, I just want to thank the board of directors and our president, Joy Arrigete from Bickerdike Redevelopment. She's the CEO and president. And Joy, we'll turn it over to you, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Kevin, for that introduction. Joy Arrigete, I'm the CEO at Bickerdike. I know so many of you, and I'm happy to get to know, those of you who I don't. And like I said, we have a really fabulous meeting today. And there are, one of the downsides of our meetings held by Zoom is that we don't get to do the the introduction that we have often been able to do, where we've been able to really share what's going on in each of our organizations. And but I know throughout the course of today's dialogue, we'll be able to have some of that sharing. But in lieu of doing that, and to make sure that we capture everyone, we want just to make sure that everybody introduces themselves in the chat. There's a couple of important questions that we're asking you to answer. One is just how you feel, so we have a good check-in. And then the second one is just what's the one thing that you really want to make sure happens in the Biden administration. Russell just put the link up again, and so we know who's at the meeting, and so our speakers also know who is at the meeting. And we're very privileged today to have two great people. As I said, I think we look at our government bodies as important partners, I think, in the work of community development. But I think those government partners also need the broader community to work with. And so this is a real opportunity to do so. We've had both of these individuals at our meetings in the past, but we are very, very happy to bring them back today so that we continue the dialogue. Certainly today is a new day, right? We have a new administration, which is just, an opportunity. I think we have control in both houses that may be conducive to, more affordable housing and community development policies, although we absolutely are a nonpartisan organization. Just want to make sure I say that. And but our government partners also want to have a dialogue with us. And we are delighted today. I want to introduce Kristen Faust, who came from among our ranks and joined the IDA as its executive director. It feels like 100 years ago. It probably feels that way to Kristen. But is going to provide us with the lay of the land in 2021, and we'll have the opportunity to have some back and forth. So welcome again to everyone to the winter membership meeting of the Chicago Rehab Network. And Kristen, I'm going to hand it over to you. Welcome and thank you.
Great, and thank you, Joy. And can I, well, first I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. I enjoy coming to the Rehab Networks meetings and sharing what we're doing at IDA, and also always hearing about what's important and going on in the community. And it's really important that we stay in touch that way. I also want to thank the Rehab Network for its critical role in what I call the donation tax credit. And it's an important tool that we use at IDA to help create and rehab more affordable rental housing typically, but I know it can be used other ways as well. And that effort, you know, the donation tax credit is up for renewal this year. And we thank you for your leadership and all your hard work in getting it created, having it continued, and this year we want to see it, you know, extended again. So that's an important priority for us. Otherwise, and I just want to clarify, so how much time do I have, Joy? I mean, total, like I don't have the agenda right in front of me.
I think we've carved out about an hour. So
Okay.
you have until 10 o'clock.
Okay. All right. So what I would like to do is I'll just talk a little bit about what's going on at IDA, and then I'd really like to open it up to dialogue with what you all see as critical, important issues. One of the things that, so the first and foremost thing that I need to talk about and share with you is that IDA in 2020 took on a tremendous challenge and opportunity to help meet the urgent need that we are faced with the pandemic and the resulting economic crisis by administering the coronavirus relief funds that came to Illinois and were earmarked by the state legislature and the governor for rental assistance and mortgage assistance. I think something I don't know that people know in Illinois is that actually our legislature, our state had one of the largest programs in the country. And I think that really speaks well of of everybody, all the parties involved, that we saw the need to designate a lot of funds to rental and mortgage assistance. And IDA did play a proactive role in that. We did approach the governor's office very early on when we saw that the funds were coming from the feds and said, we need some of this for rent and mortgage assistance. And as I said, the governor's office and legislature really, they had that same idea. So ultimately, that program ran and was going to end December 31. The feds actually extended it a little later, but we stood up and ran a program with the idea that it all had to be dispersed by December 31. And we did it. And actually, there's no other state in the whole country that had over $325 million for mortgage and rental assistance and got it all out the door. And so I'm pleased to report to you all today that we did end up dispersing $227 million to 45,000 different rental households across the state of Illinois to keep them in their place at home where they need to be because of the pandemic. And also almost 10,000, it's like 9,950. We're getting the exact number. Homeowners also got mortgage assistance. And that is really important too. As you all know, it takes renters and homeowners together to build a healthy, strong community. And so that turned out to be a very absorbing and demanding challenge for IDA and the staff. I will tell you that they embraced the challenge enthusiastically. They worked really, really hard on it. And we actually, about a third of the organization that normally was doing other things galvanized to make sure that this program happened. And so it was an extraordinary year for us, and we were all dealing with working from home, and all of that. And we really feel that there was a sense, a little bit, of building the airplane while you're flying it, but actually we are proud of the thinking and design work that we did ahead of time, and how we tried to continue to pivot and flex through the program as we saw what was happening. So I'll give you two quick examples. One is that initially we thought, oh, 150 million for rental, 150 million for mortgage assistance. Again, nobody really knew what the real demand would be. After we opened the portals, so the governor signed the bill June 10th, we opened the portal for rental August 10th, within 2 months, which is pretty amazing. And then we realized, looking at the numbers after the mortgage portal came in, that there was bigger demand on the rental side. So in the end, 227 million went to rental, and it will be 98 million to home mortgage. And so that's an example of us trying to pivot. And then also, another thing I want to share is that we were able to fund every single approved application. So everybody who came in and got approved, now not everybody who applied got approved because there were problems with their application, but everybody who got approved got funded. And so that was really exciting. And when we saw that we were going to have enough funds to do that, we were able to create a cure process. It was frustrating for some people, and we're still getting this feedback, and we understand. People are used to a rental assistance program where you fill out your paperwork, and then if you make a mistake, somebody calls you and they're like, oh, well, we still need this document, we still need that document. And then you get to bring that in, and then it keeps processing along. We were designing and had to stand up a program where we thought we would get 80 to 100,000 applications, and we had to process them and get the dollars out the door into the people's hands within like 4 months. And you can't offer that kind of, I know, it's like service and attention if you want to get $225 million out the door in 4 months. You can't do it. So there's trade-offs, and I'm hearing from the community, you know, people have to have a chance to cure, they have to have a chance to fix their application. So we're looking at that and trying to figure out ways to help build something in the second round. But I will tell you one thing we were able to do in the first round is, when we did see that there were funds, and we'd funded everybody already, and we still had more funds, we analyzed the applications that were just missing one piece of information. We could tell from how we designed the IT design. And there were 11,000 applicants that were just one piece was missing or in error. And we were able to reach out to them. This is all by email, so emails are really important, but we were able to reach out to them, and we gave them a window, a short window to respond with that document. And then we agreed to process their application. So we sent it out to 11,000 households. 9,000 responded with the document, 7,000 were approved. So we were able to fund, through a cure process, an additional 7,000 applicants. We really drove the process to try to get to yes. We tried to keep it really simple. And we are now, and I want to get feedback from you guys here that have been involved with it, but we are hearing, you know, we know that, we know that we know we need to make some changes. And so we're working on that. But I think the ability to flex and knowing that we were driving towards yes, we were trying to get to say yes, was really important. We worked with community partners. We did an RFP and that went out. About community organizations responded, and 62 were selected across the state. And those organizations helped us market the program, and also a lot of them offered technical assistance to applicants or small landlords who needed help with the application. And that was a really, really important part of the making the program a success. We plan on, if anything, expanding that this time. And that, because it's really important that we go deep into the community and help people hear about the program and access it. So that was a really good piece of it too. But a clear difference for those of you who come out of social service background more, the difference was we didn't have those groups process the application. And that is where we think actually, quite frankly, is what allowed us to have success, because the community groups did all the outreach and the TA, but then when the application was submitted, it went through this, we processed it, and we had to, and the application was designed to be processed quickly and efficiently, and there were just key questions, and we didn't ask for lots of extras, and that enabled it to move fairly fast. It still wasn't fast enough. We needed to do a better job of communicating with the tenants as we were moving along. There were some people who had to wait a long time without hearing from us. We know we got to do better in all that in communication, but overall, we were really pleased to have the privilege of distributing the funds, and we want to. There's this new round coming. It's more fun. It's more money. It's just rental assistance. It's designated just rental. And the plan is that IDA will again administer a big chunk of it, but also we are going to put, we think, at least 100 million through DHS. And if those of you who have organization, they have their continuum of care, and these community organizations that provide more case management can help tenants that might need additional services besides just rental assistance. And so we're excited about this kind of multifaceted approach to helping tenants in need, and that IDA will have a program that still is pretty much, okay, landlords and tenants, you need your rental assistance, let's get your application in and we'll get it, we'll review it, and hopefully we'll get to yes. And then there'll be other portals, so to speak, through those continuums of care and the other mechanisms and channels that the state Department of Human Services uses to work with clients. And they typically are working with clients at 30% of AMI or below. Not always, but typically. So that's some feedback on and updates on the rental and mortgage assistance. I'm hoping that all of you who are property developers and property managers, I'm hoping that every one of you should have at least had some tenants that got funded. But I know you probably have some tenants that applied and didn't get funded. And we're really hoping we can serve, we'll be able to serve those folks in this next round. So I would love to, it'd be great to get a little feedback on that. Maybe we could have a little dialogue for 10 minutes or so, and then we can talk about other priorities for IDA.
Great.
Sounds
And
good.
if there are questions, and I also, just before taking the first question, I want to just recognize King Harris. I don't know how it slipped my mind, but you are never a forgettable person, King, who is chairman of the IDA board, and somebody who's been involved in the field for many years. So welcome, King. And so Kristen, questions for Kristen on the rental assistance program, either that happened under CARES, or I don't know what the new program, I'm calling it CARES 2, but I'm sure it will have a more creative name. Questions, comments?
This is Michael from Bickerdike Redevelopment. Want to thank IDA. We submitted, I think, 86 applications and 43 were funded. And, I think it was amazing how you guys mobilized and got the funds out, especially given the need. And I don't know if you're going to go over this later, but I know that there are more restrictions on the rental assistance that in the legislation that passed in the subsequent CARES Act. So I don't know if you can speak to how that'll be different from the first round.
Yeah, great question. Thanks. And I'm glad, okay, 43 out of 86. So you were right at 50%. Okay. I think the overall success rate was actually 58%, something like that, statewide. So you were right in that range. So yes, so the new federal legislation that is earmarking emergency rental assistance, it is putting more restriction on it. One, it's clarified that it's 80% and below. That's great. We designed the program 80% below anyway. It clarified that landlords are an important part of the program, that we had designed it that way anyway. It talks about, we can still go back to March 1 is our interpretation of it, but we can only go 3 months forward. Our program functionally didn't go more than 3 months forward anyway. And so, so we're looking at seeing, can we design something that would allow tenants to do that? I'm trying to think of other, it's more like reporting requirements, and a little bit more around income certification. Maybe we may have to ask some more questions around income certification. The way we see it is it's more demanding of the administrating agency, in that we're going to have an even stronger audit trail. And we always have to design for an audit trail. And then it may force us to ask more information of the landlord or tenant about their delinquent rent. So last time we just asked the tenant, what are you behind? And then we just asked the landlord to confirm that. I have to tell you, our experience was they almost never matched, which was interesting, you know, but I get it, because landlord's going to include it. I just get that it didn't always exactly match, but I do think that we are planning on designing, I'll say this, we got feedback from landlords, and so you can tell me if you agree with this, that the property owners would be willing to work a little harder on each application, even though I know you guys put work on them, if it helped increase the likelihood of approval. And we think that, so we are going to probably ask more of the landlord than of the tenant. And we designed it, the first application that way, and we're going to design the second one that way too, because we heard that most landlords were willing to, like if we had to ask what was the past due amount December 31 and what was the past due amount March 31 or whatever, you'd have to put in 2 amounts instead of just 1, stuff like that. I'm getting in the weeds, but basically I don't think that the ultimate people served will be that much different. I think it will be at the core a similar type program. We do have to prioritize somehow people at 50% AMI and below. But I'm kind of thinking that most people, based on 2020 income, so like most people who were up to 80 before are probably down below 50 anyway. We got to figure that out too. There's a few pieces we got to figure out. Did that answer your question?
It does. And one quick follow-up. The interface through email was a bit difficult, in that while we were processing the applications, we would get multiple emails almost every day. And for us, you know, we had 86 applications. It was hard to tell which one you were getting. So it just, I don't know if we can, you know, and I know you guys were putting this together on the fly, but if there's some way to just get a better interface with landlords, so that we don't get flooded with 100 emails a day, having to sort through what exactly they were, that would be very helpful. And I know you're.
No, that's great feedback. That's the feedback I want, please. No, it didn't. So thank you. That's really, really helpful. We are trying to figure out if there's a way that we can work with landlords who have, you know, a lot more units. And then also we're hearing, and we know we want to do more outreach to very, very small landlords who need help putting the information together, like people who own a 2-flat or 4-flat, you know, and so we're looking and seeing what we can do for both. So great. And sorry about all those emails.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you.
You were getting them from DocuSign, and you were getting them from Ida, and yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Thanks. There's a couple questions in the chat. The first one from Dalila Aragon is there a date when the RFPs for other partners will be released for the second rental assistance round?
Not
So a
yet, but
date when it's going to be released?
yeah, not yet, but please, but I'll make sure that we send that out to the Rehab Network.
Okay, great. And then
Thank you.
the Rehab Network can post that on its site. That's great.
Yep.
Hopefully we'll have a little more lead
Soon.
time.
Yeah, well, it will be soon. It will be fast.
Great. And then Earl, I'm hoping that your question got, so Earl asked about whether or not what was posted on the site. And I think there's been some back and forth. Earl, I don't know if your question was answered.
Yeah, I can reach out to somebody else on the call if necessary, but I just want to make sure that we have the opportunity to apply for some of those funds, both, it sounds like, from the landlord perspective and from the tenant perspective. So I'm curious and anxiously awaiting that information.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the program fundamentally is, we will open up application portal, and the way we did it last time, and we'll probably do it again, is the tenant had to fill out information and the landlord has to fill out information. And then together that makes an application complete. We are going to see what we can do, and it might be through DHS. If this won't apply to any of you all as landlords, but there's a few instances where we heard that tenants applied and landlords didn't cooperate. So we're going to see if we can try to have a solution for that subset of folks. Okay.
This is Rafael. Good morning, everybody. I have a question, Christy. The money that was returned, how much money was returned, and will that be redeployed as part of the second round or with the restrictions and conditions of the first round?
That's a great question. So the way the program worked is that there were $5,000 checks sent out. And if the tenant didn't know that much, the landlord had to return the funds at the end of the year. We've received over $3 million back so far. I think we're getting close to 4 million. And yeah, I think I don't have the number right in front of me yet, but we're compiling all that information. And we were able to recycle the monies that came in before December 31, which we recycled those back into that current rental assistance program. There are funds coming in January and February, and we're assessing how we're going to administer those. But they will go towards an eligible use of from the first round. Either more rental assistance, but we might, quite frankly, so originally when we designed the program, we were like 150 for rental, 150 for mortgage, and 15 million to fill gaps in tax credit deals where the funding gap was caused by increased costs by COVID. And then it turned out we didn't have any deals that met the time restrictions of the law. But now, since it's extended, so we might use, we think it's going to be under 5 million, but we might be able to use that to actually put in as some, I don't want to call it subordinate, soft money. I'll call it soft money in some tax credit deals that are closing this year that had, we're seeing costs go up because of COVID, construction costs and labor and material costs. So quite honest, so we may divert it back to that, which was supposed to be an original use. There is, yeah. So that's what we're looking at.
Thank you.
We have another question in the chat. How can we assure that funds prevent displacement and eviction?
Well, we think that's how the program is designed. The fund, by going to the landlord, we know that it has to be applied to rent. There is another philosophy, and sometimes it's needed. I mean, the for cities program, the money went to the tenant. So, but to us, we had to ensure that it was used for rent. And so by funding the landlord, we know it's going to that. And then you can't, if there's a bad actor, if somehow the landlord got the money, both the tenant and landlord are notified that the money was approved and the money was funded. So if there's a bad actor somehow where the landlord got the money, but they didn't apply it to the tenant's account, then you have to do what you would do in any case. You would go to legal aid, but you could come to IDA. We can give proof that the money was funded. I mean, you know, that's somebody being fraudulent or breaking the law, and you'd have to take appropriate steps. So I don't know if I answered that question, but it's rental. Yeah, by creating the program the way we did, we think that's what we did. We helped people stay in place and not get evicted. And then the governor, of course, you know, has been extending the eviction moratorium on a 30-day basis. And, you know, we can't do that forever. I don't think he can do that forever. I don't have any intel on how long it will go, but we do think that as, you know, as money starts flowing, I think it'll be this spring when money starts flowing, that will help keep people in place. And even if the moratorium did lift, it will, quite frankly, and you all know this better than I do. I mean, I don't know when you had to evict somebody, which I know is like not what you're in business to do, but when you did it, I don't know, in Cook County, what does it take? 3 months, 6 months, 9 months in a good normally. And so we know that the courts are very backlogged. And so evictions, at least in Cook County, is not true in the rest of the state. We wouldn't expect to happen quickly. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but that's what we're thinking.
And there's some comments and questions in the chat that I want to make sure we get to. And I have one, but I'm going to hold mine for a minute. Just a comment, win-win programs like this for private landlords and tenants are so rare. It would be great to document experience and lessons, which would be a really great thing. Bill Eager has a question that's not on this program. And so I'm going to hold it for a minute there, Bill, because boy, I have those too. And there's a question about homeowners, and Kristen from Kiela, Kristen started out by talking about that there are a program that did help homeowners. And Kristen, I don't know if you want to circle back on that again.
Right. So we did get almost 100 million out for homeowners, but the legislation was passed by US Congress in December. It's just rental assistance. It's specifically rental assistance. And so nothing for homeowners. I personally think, but don't, you know, that and 50 cents will not buy you a cup of coffee. I personally expect the Biden administration and the next Congress to eventually pass something for homeowners as well. I think, you know, if we make our voices heard, and I think there are coalitions pushing for that. This round, they just focused on renters. So we stand ready to administer a mortgage program as soon as the funds are there. So.
Kristen, I'm sorry, I have a question, a comment too. First of all, thank you for all the hard work and for working with those 90 community organizations that I would like to understand that that's how we were able to get the Latino participation, the Latino families that were able to benefit. And as I heard you yesterday at the other meeting, 11.5 was the percentage of Latino families benefit from this rental assistance. And we both know that it's a challenge because we both know and agree that we should be able to, this second round now, actually have a higher number of Latino families participating with this, you know, having access to these funds. So the question is how these community partners and, you know, Baker Dyke, Lucha, CMHDC, Hispanic Housing, you know, Resurrection, all of us, how you can work with all of us specifically, and how can we do better outreach to the Latino community. I know you did marketing, and I know you mentioned that you also, you know, have been doing technical assistance, which is critical. But I would like to ask you to please, you know, reflect more on that and see how we can all work together. So at the end, we can target, you know, with this second round, maybe we get to 15% or 18%.
So thank you for that comment. Yes, we are very focused on that, and we want deeper outreach and turnout, so to speak. And we're committed to it. And I'll challenge you all back that I need your help and ideas on how to go deeper. we do, so this is statewide data. But when you look at who was served, so first of all, the state mandate disproportionately impacted areas did get over 50% of the funds, which is good. It was less was required, but they did get that. But overall, statewide was 11.7%. I'm going to round that to 12. 12% Latino, 3% Asian, 63. Sorry, my number. I think it's 63% African American and 24% white. Is who got served by the rental program. That's rental program, and so we're now having time. We were so focused on approving applications, getting dollars out door. We're now having time to pull what data we can pull from the applications and looking at that. But it does look like overall, like pretty much the percent that applied was pretty much the percent approved. So we had, 65% of the applications came in from African Americans, and 63% was approved. 11.4% of the applications came in from Hispanic Latinos, and 11.7% was approved. So we have to do even a better job at going deeper. We did have the application in Spanish. We did. We had language capability at our COAs in over 16 different languages. We did Spanish language stories on some Spanish-speaking television stations in the Chicagoland area. But we need help. We need ideas. And actually, my comms team, Amy Lee from my comms team, is on this call. And so, if you want to put in the chat other outlets, or just email me later about ideas you have for outreach, we're really, really open. We want to reach all communities. So, okay, it's 9:44, Joy, and I feel like we should leave 15 minutes for some other topic.
Yep.
This is, huge for us. This takes up. I never thought I've helped finance new rental housing and rehab, and I've done a lot around home ownership. And all that work that we all usually do day in, day out is hard enough, right? I never expected to be administering a program at IDA where we were trying to get dollars into the hands of individual consumers. Let me tell you, that is a different business, right? It's a different kind of daily activity, but it's been really satisfying, and the team is ready to do it again. And I really can't say enough about how the IDA staff came through on this. And so, but we have not taken our eye off like multifamily and the need to do more tax credit deals. And we're so excited that the 4% floor is there, got passed by Congress. We think, that we're looking at that's probably 500 more units a year, for Illinois, which is great. We just had, like a lot of the country, we're in this weird K-shaped recovery while we have our lower income and disproportionately African-American Latino households suffering from a huge economic crisis. We also have a boom going on in first-time home buyers. And many of those first-time, some of those first-time home buyers are Black and Latino, which is great because people who have jobs are out there buying houses because interest rates are so low. So we just had one of our highest volume years in home mortgage lending ever. We just rolled out a program December 1st in home mortgage lending where we have a special down payment assistance program going on right now. And we are doing extra deep marketing in African-American Latino communities where we pay off your student loan debt. If you have student loan debt, $40,000 or less, and you are shopping for a home, and it is that debt that is keeping you from qualifying for that mortgage, we have a new program we rolled out called Smart Buy, and we are just thrilled. Our first buyer, our first prospective homeowner, is supposed to close tomorrow, and it's a person of color is going to become a homeowner and getting $37,000 of student debt that she had paid off. How could we do that? That was capital bill funds. So the other really exciting thing where I thought I was going to be spending my time and energy was like on the capital bill funds, and we are doing that too, and we're doing the ERA. So we did get capital bill money last year, and it was targeted toward down payment assistance and a strong communities program, which went out to local governments. We do think, we don't know, we don't get told, but we do think over the next 2 years, we will get some special capital bill money that could be targeted towards health and housing, which would relate, I think, to special multifamily deals that intersect more strongly with the healthcare sector and everyone realizing that housing is a key social determinant of health. So if any of you are working on special buildings or projects, or you're partnering with healthcare partners, we'd be interested in hearing about it, because we're trying to think of how we could use a small amount of seed money to fund some pilots or an example that could be held up that maybe then we can take back to the feds and say, you should do this all the time. We also are going to have some funds for single family new construction home ownership, which I know some of the groups on this call do. We don't know when it's coming. Again, we want to leverage off of what, it won't just be for the city, in the city of Chicago, but we want to leverage off the great work that the city is doing in that area. And so we're working on that. And we also have, there'll be a pool of money for things like innovation. And under innovation, I would put cooperative economics. And under cooperative economics, it might be a co-op model, a special co-op model or something like that. So we will, but the trouble is, I don't know when the money will come in. The state has to match it with revenues. And, but we need to be planning. This is the year we need to be planning for program design around how those funds will be used. And so that when the funds come, we don't spend another 18 months doing program design before we can get the dollars out the door. We need to figure out how we have Rehab Network members. Maybe I could come back another meeting, or one of my staff could come and share with you kind of the themes, the buckets where the capital bill money would be spent. And then you guys could do some thinking and some feedback and get back to us. So that's another really big piece. And then the last big piece going on at IDA is that we have been all year working on something called the Housing Blueprint. And I hope that some of you in your organizations, you can still go on the website or Housing Blueprint and fill out the survey. But also we did listening tours all over the state, listening to the needs of, we put special emphasis on low income residents across the state. We did a session in Arabic. We did multiple sessions in Spanish. And we are listening to the needs of the people. And we do a plan every year that's presented to the legislature. We do a housing plan every year. IDA does one every year. It's actually, if you read it, it's got some good stuff in it, but like nobody knows about it. And so this Housing Blueprint is our opportunity to take all that data and that information that we have about what's going on, but also to look forward and to set a vision for where we can go as a state and how we make sure that every single person who lives in Illinois has decent, safe, and affordable housing. And so the blueprint is scheduled to come out, we think, in March. And so that's another kind of exciting effort that's going on at IDA. Now I'll stop, Joy, and take more questions.
Okay.
Kristen,
or not questions, comments, just give us feedback. What do you want me to know? Yeah. And
Kristen, relative to innovation, just want to seed the clouds here a little bit with you and the other people in the room. We're going to be exploring, Voice of the People is going to be exploring with Jack Markowski at CIC and with the help of Jeff Leslie at University of Chicago, the notion of setting up a community land trust, not one that could be just for us per se, but one that could grow with other nonprofit low-income sponsors. And these kind of things have been done more so with single family around the country. You probably know a lot of examples of it, but the idea of doing it with multifamily, having long-term affordability guarantees and real benefits of membership, including tax benefits, is something that we want to talk about and get input from Rehab Network members in the coming months. But nothing like this happens without the tacit support and kind of moral backing of Ida and the city. So I hope that you're open to hearing and participating in those kind of conversations going forward relative to innovative and cooperative strategies.
Great, thanks. And yeah, and we will. And because I think I heard you say something about it once before, Mike, the only challenge, I'm so bad. I should just stay high level. I get too in the weeds, but what I'll throw back at you because is that, we already put extended use agreements and things like that on anything Ida funds. And those agreements are 35 and 40 years. And so I would just challenge you to think about how to leverage off existing tools that are already in place. But maybe you can, maybe you can't. So that's all I'll say. Okay. So
I want to circle back to Bill Eager. He had a question about, I'm going to let you ask your question, Bill, unless you want me to read what was in the chat.
No, it's fine. Thanks, Joy. Hi, Kristen. Just had a question. I mean, the rental system obviously is fantastic. There are a number of other things housing related approved by Congress, most notably the 4% fix on tax exempt bond deals. So I was wondering if there are any policy changes planned at Ida in light of either the 4% fix or any other provisions that were approved by Congress. I mean, we're obviously all pretty excited about it because it's, more equity to our deals and it makes them easier to close and all that sort of stuff. But I was wondering if there were, if there were any changes planned at Ida in light of that.
Such as what?
Oh, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I just wondering, I don't have a specific policy question, just wondering if in light of that, there were going to be any amendments to your policies or.
Well, I think what we are focused on is this is also the year that we will revise the QAP. And we will be going out this summer. I think we're just putting the schedule together now to do the input sessions for how the QAP is every 2 years, right? We've been doing a new QAP.
Yep.
So this will be the year that we get input for that. So right now, our thinking is that changes like that would get incorporated into new QAP.
Okay. That's fine. We have deals, in the queue now. That's why I'm wondering if there's anything immediately planned.
No, nothing.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. We do think that we will be able to do more 4% deals though. And that's exciting because for some projects that can work really well. And so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 30% in some cases, whatever. It's a huge increase in equity for us. So.
Right. It's exciting.
Thank you.
Joy, I'm not reading, just so you know, I'm not reading the chat, so I'm just
and so I'm hoping that you'll be able to sort of stay for a minute and just scroll through it when we wrap. We have about 4 more minutes and our next speaker has arrived. So I wanted to just open it up to any more questions. I wanted to also ask a question of my own. First, I think Michael talked about the rental assistance program that Bickerdike residents have benefited from, as well as many others in the state. I'm very happy that there'll be a second round. And I, agree that this is the way to help landlords. And, but we have residents also who just aren't paying their rent, because there's an eviction moratorium, there's several eviction moratoriums. And so, there are some people that have just checked out, in paying their rent, and it's a little rough. beyond just people that have come on economic hardship. And so, we're working with our residents and trying to connect people to as many resources as possible for those that need them, and hoping that this second round will be able to connect more people. So thank you for that, and we look forward to that. And I also want to just put in a word for preservation projects. We still have, and Bickerdike is among them, that has projects that are way beyond post year 15 that we're trying to recapitalize, and it's priority. And I know that we're not alone in the sea of owners, both not-for-profit and for-profit, that have this aging housing stock. So, just hoping that that stays on IDA's radar screen in balance with funding new projects.
That's great. Thanks, Joy. So let me just wrap up and say it is in the IDA mission statement, which is just like one sentence, that IDA's mission is to finance the creation and preservation of affordable housing. And so there really is a strong commitment to doing both. But I appreciate, the hearing again about the importance. The other thing I just want to share with you, and I'll conclude on, this is an extraordinary time in history. There's so many challenging things going on. We have so many people in strife, and yet we have a progressive governor, and we'll soon have a Democratic, federal government, and housing is a huge need. It was before the crisis, now it's risen to kind of the radar of the politicians now because of the crisis. And so in some ways, I think there could be great opportunities to even do more, right? And so it is an exciting time. One of the things that Governor Pritzker has really emphasized, and since I've come to work at IDA, is intragovernmental cooperation. So you heard me talk about how DHS, the fact that Grace Ho, she's the Secretary of DHS, and we talk regularly and are trying to coordinate efforts. Like, you can't do it perfectly, but thinking about people's needs on a continuum, right? And what do they need? And they have an emergency rental assistance that they've been running for years and years, right? For people that are just about to be homeless, things like that. So us just talking with each other and understanding that, working together, how they're going to get some of these funds is an example of that. And then the cooperation between the city government and county government, but particularly with the city of Chicago. I want you all to know that we view the coordination of that is really important to us, and the coordination cooperation has been really, really good and ongoing. And I think that, we really couldn't ask for a better Commissioner of Housing than Marisa, but we really value the fact that the conversation between the city and the state is really strong and open, and we don't always agree on everything, but we have a really good relationship. And I think that all the governmental entities at least going in the same direction and talking to each other really helps all of you and helps the whole housing field. It helps residents, it helps all of us. So just know that we're committed to that as well. And then that's been a really fun part actually of the job, is trying to figure out how we can keep pushing on that and doing that even better. So I will stop there, and I want to thank you all. I know a lot of you, but I don't know a lot of you. And so hello, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. I will spend a few minutes and try to go through the chat. I do have a couple of IDA staffers here. Brendan and Amy are here, and they've been responding a little bit too. And then we just I look forward to another dialogue. And thanks again, Joy, for all the work that you and your Rehab Network members do.
Thank you, Kristen, and so much appreciated. This dialogue is really important, and we hope to keep it on in the coming year. And we have 2 years that we have to do some really, really good stuff, and not be distracted by the negativity that is a backdrop. And but we really appreciate your being here and to the work that's ahead. So thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
And I know even though we can't get a big round of applause, I know that there are many people here that everyone is appreciating your presence. So thank you.
Well done, Kristen. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Just so much you laid out. I just want to echo what Joy said is we'll look forward to getting back, as you mentioned, talking with some of your staff about sharing other ideas. It just was a very encouraging overview, even in that last 10 minutes, about what's going on and how you're thinking about it and all the collaboration. Our next guest has arrived. So we do want to welcome Commissioner Marissa Navarro to talk, but let me have Joy do the introductions.
Great. So we're really privileged that not only do we have our IDA Executive Director, we have the Commissioner of the Department of Housing, so we have a city and state. And so a partner to so many of us, and very important, is the city of Chicago. And so I think she barely needs any introduction at all. You know, I think most people know Marisa because she's been out there, and even in COVID times, you know, she's had a presence in all of our work. And so with no further ado, I want to introduce Marisa, who will give highlights of the last year and really what's ahead for the coming year and what are priorities in this 2021 interesting year ahead. So welcome, Marisa.
Joy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Does this work well? Okay, thank you. Great to see you, and thanks to the Rehab Network for pulling this great forum together. It's something that it's been a resource to me back when I was developing affordable housing, and we continue to talk a lot now on all kinds of matters. So I'm so glad for this chance, and glad to join right after Kristen. I heard the finishing part of what she was saying, and I do want to underscore, we just 2 days ago had a Zoom call with Kristen and team, myself and team, and the county, talking through the nitty gritty of how we were going to coordinate on these rental assistance grants. So what she says is real. We're talking all the time, and we're trying to do right by folks as much as possible by coordinating. I didn't hear everything that Kristen said, but just if she didn't say this, to give an example, we ran through our numbers on the last rental assistance round of grants, and the city was able to provide rental assistance grants to about 8,800 households in the last round, and the state provided about 19,500. So in the city, in addition to all the work that they did across the state. So we're just really grateful that we function so well together to the benefit of city residents, because you know, with the benefit of the additional dollars that the state allotted them, they were able to do a great deal more. And on that note, I'll just say before diving into everything else that you know, we are looking forward to this next round of grants. It looks like we don't have this number for sure. Last time, strictly on rental assistance, the city had about $21 million that we allocated. And it looks like this time we expect quite a bit more than that. It could be up to 3 times more than that. And that it will be a resource that landlords can directly apply for. And I'm really excited about that too, because I know that, you know, what a hard time it has been, particularly for unsubsidized property owners. Subsidized owners that are in the city's portfolio, of course, can apply to the city for grants, but if you're not subsidized, it is, you know, it's been a really scary and hard time for folks. So I'm really glad that this is a resource that landlords can apply directly to us for, and of course to the state as well. So jumping on from that, in talking with Kevin and Rachel ahead of time, the idea was to just kind of give a sense of what what our thoughts are and plans are going into 2021. And what I wanted to do was to rather than just rattle off a bunch of policy stuff, I really want to talk about this as it relates to the values of our department, of the Department of Housing, and the principles that we work by. When I did our budget hearing this year, I started by reading these principles, and it's the way that we are kind of organizing as a department. So what I'd like to do is just talk about each one as relates to the things we are hoping and planning to get done this year. So there's 8 of them, but don't worry, I'll move quickly. Our first principle is we use our inclusionary housing tools to reduce segregation, not maintain it. And the number one thing I would say we're planning along these lines in 2021 is a revision to the Affordable Requirements Ordinance. Joy, you were a very valued member of that work over more than the past year, as we convened a inclusionary housing working group to look at how we really use this tool. It is our one inclusionary tool to get more housing in parts of the city, more housing that people can afford in parts of the city that have lacked it, because that is the push of this tool. And so we are hoping to be able to introduce revisions this quarter. So our goal has been Q1, that we're introducing some changes to how that works. And we hope one of the big things that came out of the inclusionary housing task force and the report was a point that I don't have to tell any of you, which is that we are overly dependent on developer and lieu fees, and that makes it hard to change this policy. And so we're also looking at, are there additional sources of funding that we can develop for affordable housing? So that's obviously, and that one is about what can we do locally, right? Bulk of our funding, of course, comes federally, but what can we do locally to boost the dollars that we have available to us every year to house more people affordably? All right, so our second principle is the department's budget and policies are shaped by a racial equity lens. So what that means is that we put our our policies and our programs through the lens of racial equity. How does this impact people by race and by geography? And we collect data on that. We talk to impacted populations, and then we determine what changes we need to make based on what we learn. So the first thing that we did with this principle and this goal was to do a racial equity impact assessment of our qualified allocation plan, of our low-income housing tax credit program. Many of you, I want to thank, because many of you took part in conversations that we had with developers to inform this process. So what this means is essentially we're saying a really important principle, which is racist intent is not required to have racist outcomes. We know that this isn't about staff at the Department of Housing intending to have do anything but the best for our communities. It's simply to say, if we don't examine the impact of our policies by race, we may be negatively impacting people without knowing it, if we don't examine what's been the outcome of the things we have put in place. So that's what we've done. We worked with enterprise community partners. We worked with many of you. We did, pop-up tables outside at tax credit buildings, and many of you helped us with that, to be able to talk to residents directly. We examined the data. We learned all the places where we don't have enough data and that we need to improve our data collection and our data sharing. And so the exciting thing about that for this year is that we expect the results of this racial equity impact assessment, or REIA, to then impact the 2021 QAP. And we anticipate, our goal is to put out our draft QAP in Q1, and then the final by this summer. And that the goal is that it will reflect this work. And not only for 2021, but we're laying out kind of, there's things we can do right now, but there's longer term work. This is an ongoing project, right? And so what do we anticipate doing this year versus in 2023 when we do the next QAP, et cetera. So that's kind of the process that we're setting in motion. And for those of you who have not met her, we have a great new staff person, Cindy Soto, who's a managing deputy commissioner at the Department of Housing, who oversees our community engagement and racial equity work and so on. So she's leading this up. Our third principle, decisions about funding affordable housing developments are made in a process that is transparent to and predictable for developers and accountable to communities. So this is kind of going back to the QAP that we hope to, again, put out in draft form this quarter. And really our goal there, which we started with the first QAP we put out in 2019, which is to make it a much more transparent and predictable tool for folks than the city's QAP has been in the past. We don't want, there's several things we're solving for here. We don't want to waste people's time and money. We want to be more proactive and being clear about what it is we're looking for and setting policy through this document, as the state has long done before us. So our managing deputy, Brian Essenberg, is overseeing this work. And again, we hope to have that out this quarter, the draft this quarter. Principle 4, in the face of a 120,000 affordable unit gap and shrinking federal resources, we expand sources and identify new and improved ways to create and maintain below market housing choices for residents without subsidy. Knowing we can't subsidize our way out of that gap, we are trying to also come up with other ways to provide below market units. An example of that is having passed the additional dwelling units ordinance. It's a pilot for now in December, and that will begin May 1st, where there's 5 geographies around the city where people can now much more easily and legally convert a basement unit, an attic unit, a coach house to be able to add additional income to their household. And in some cases, you know, if you think about many of the courtyard buildings, for instance, that we have around the city, where you could add a fair number of units that way. And once we get to that kind of number, we are we do have affordability restrictions. We also have dollars set aside for low-income homeowners who need to convert an existing unit to make it legal and permitted and so on. So, and we have a partnership with the trust fund to make sure that some of these ADUs are subsidized at very low incomes. And so we've got a partnership there where we've set aside some of those funds. All right, principle 5, we commit to more effectively link affordable housing and public transportation. We've been working with Elevated Chicago to identify equitable transit-oriented development projects as pilot projects where we're studying that. Certainly a flagship one for us that we are excited about that's under construction, Joy, is the Emmett Street Apartments in Logan Square. We're also, through our 2019 QAP, we are supporting 43 Green and Grand Boulevard, right by the Green Line Park Station Lofts in Woodlawn, that is right by the terminus of the Green Line. These are projects that we are being very deliberate in our support, because we believe in the importance of proximity of affordability near transit. Number 6, we solve for displacement, which sometimes comes in the form of gentrification, sometimes comes in the form of disinvestment, but it is not race neutral in this city. And we have a lot of things that we're working on under this principle and commitment. Many of you know that we've got projects we're rolling out an engagement process right now in Pilsen and Little Village. We have, over the past year, done a pretty intensive engagement process in Woodlawn, and I'm very excited that we were able to pass a package of proactive initiatives in the face of the Obama Presidential Center there that we're working really hard even before the ground has been broken to make sure that Woodlawn residents are not displaced, and at the same time that we're proactively building opportunities for homeownership and so on in the Woodlawn community. And we're also working right now in the first quarter on some anti-deconversion ordinances in the area around the 606 and in Pilsen, where we're really trying to get a handle on deconversions and the way that they impact the 2 to 4 flat kind of naturally occurring affordable stock in those communities. All right, we're down to the last 2. So number 7, we establish robust homeownership programs in South and West Side communities as a step to repairing the intergenerational harm of private and government wealth extraction from Black Chicagoans. We have a lot going on in this as well across the whole year. We're working on a major effort at a bigger scale than we've done before in North Lawndale. We also have purchase price assistance programs that we'll be issuing RFPs for in Woodlawn and Little Village, and some in Garfield Park, West Humboldt, North Lawndale that are further along, and we hope to begin construction. And finally, we prioritize regular forums for dialogue with stakeholders, along with collecting and making the department's data and progress against goals public and easily accessible. So many of you I know there was just one recently with our team, with Daniel Hertz and Cindy Soto, of just kind of a dialogue meeting with folks in the field, asking what's going on, what we should know about, exchanging information both ways. So those kind of regular meetings are ones that we want to continue. If that's something you want to be part of, let me know in the chat and we'll make sure to get you on that list. And we are working really hard, especially we have this slotted for Q2 after hopefully Daniel can breathe after all his ARO work. It's a major to-do list for us, is really getting our data in a place where, as I've said, you shouldn't need a private investigator to figure out our affordable housing data. You should not have to FOIA for information that we should just be making available to people. And not just in a PDF that you have to search through in a million places and create your own Excel chart to do anything with it, but actually make it digestible and understandable and hold us accountable. So those are goals that we have for sure, working on throughout the year, but probably starting more heavily in Q2 to get more and more of our data online and accessible in the way that we did with our ARO data tracker for any of you who've played around with that. So I will stop there. That gives you a little sense of our plans for the year, and there are some things, of course, at the state level that we're tracking and that we're working closely with partners at IHC and Housing Action Illinois and you all on. But I'll stop there and see what folks want to talk about.
Great, and we have a number of questions that have come up in the chat and comments, and so I'm just going to try to hit the questions, but okay, where can we find the list that you're sharing?
The list of
one of the questions, the list of 8 priorities or principles.
I'm happy to share. Yep. In fact, I think Eugenia Orr is our communications director. I believe she is participating. Eugenia, if you can send that to Kevin and Rachel, they can share it with the group.
Great.
Absolutely.
And I think a couple of offers of engagement. And so are there other questions that people have? Just from the in general?
Yeah, Marissa, I know Raphael, if you're still in the room, we were at a meeting weeks ago.
Who's speaking right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Mike Rohrbeck
Oh,
from
hi, I
Voice
see
of the
you now.
People.
Okay, hi.
I, I was in a meeting weeks ago with a bunch of private owners from around the city. And of course, we all are kind of struggling with COVID-related challenges and the housing that we provide. But I was really struck with the anger and dissension that's out there among the private owners that are housing folks with the naturally occurring affordable housing that you speak of. And it's like, I don't know what's going to happen during this next year, but there could be really explosive dissension within the real estate interests for these owners who, you know, they have a variety of understandable complaints about their finances being in serious trouble. And of course, they got concerns about not being able to collect rents and all kinds of things. And I'm really worried that there's this huge gulf between social service and affordable housing interests that could be developing and private landlords and owner interests. And it just sort of raises the prospect about, well, we need to be thinking differently perhaps about how do we assist private owners in our communities. And that's a very significant question, I think, for the north side that's experienced so much gentrification, but yet and still has so many people that are low income and persons of color at risk of displacement, that we got to be thinking differently about it. But we could have some very serious problems that are going to be coming your way and with all of us in our communities during this next year. It's scary.
Hi, Marisa. This is Rafael.
Hi,
I'm
Rafael.
here, Michael. And I think just to follow up on the points that Mike made, very early during the pandemic, there was this, there were several groups that portrayed landlords as being evil and only being interested in collecting rent and nothing else. And that in a way snowballed into where we are today, where there's this perception that landlords are only interested in collecting rent and they don't care about the tenants. The fact that there has been a moratorium on eviction and many tenants, not all, but many tenants are taking advantage of that not to pay the rent. That has resulted in landlords feeling like they're not getting help from anybody. So I think that as you think about the approach going forward, it is very important. And I know that the governor and the mayor has made statements about people are still responsible for paying rent, and that should be it should be the message going forward, so people don't get the idea that because of the pandemic they cannot pay, they should not pay rent. So to the extent that the Department of Housing keeps saying that, that will help tremendously. But I agree with Mike that there is a lot of disappointment, especially on property owners on the north side, that they feel abandoned by the city and the state because of especially because of the eviction moratorium. So that's a real problem, and it's a real problem when we're all trying to provide affordable housing.
Yeah, I thank you, Rafael and Michael. And I think you're speaking to a really important truth, and it's been a tension from the very beginning. Unfortunately, you know, and I'm hoping that this will change with the new administration. It is a tension that, in my opinion, comes from the fact that we have a federal government that has yet to respond to this crisis commensurate with the degree of economic, you know, damage that it has caused. And so without treating this the way that eventually this country responded to the Great Depression and things of that nature, without treating it that way, we are in fact leaving people to fend for themselves. And, you know, we're just now getting the levels of rental assistance that, you know, we should have had 9 months ago. It's just, it's unconscionable. And so what we have, you know, the things we've been trying to do at a local level include, you know, things like putting public pressure on banks to be flexible on mortgages and things of that nature. And of course, you know, many property owners have pointed out, look, our mortgage is just one expense. We have tons of other expenses that aren't, you know, I can't not pay my light bill. I can't not pay, you know, my, et cetera. And that's all understood. I do think, and we've been, as noted, trying to coordinate as much as possible between county and state. And then on our end, also noting we can help folks that have a development that's in our portfolio. We very quickly, and I really want to commend our multifamily team, came up with this program, the E-Ramp, to provide grants for folks that that have a, you know, a subsidized development. But again, that leaves out a whole class of landlords that that don't fall in that category and are struggling. My hope is that this time the dollar amount is such that we are going to be able to reach much further into the needs that people have, reach many more property owners and households, and try to get people closer to whole. And you're right, you know, we have a class of landlords and property owners that are suffering. And then we have a big unknown about evictions and what kind of impact we're going to see once the moratorium is lifted. I will point out, Rafael, that the change that the governor made recently to the eviction moratorium now means that if you do not have a COVID-related loss of income, or you're over a certain income to begin with, the moratorium does not apply to you. So that was a change that was made along the way, to get at some of what you're saying, which is this isn't a rent holiday if you don't have if you have not experienced income loss because of COVID, you are still expected to be paying your rent.
And let me say, let me make something also very clear that when I participate in these groups discussions, I always say that we should, in a way, be thankful to the Department of Housing and to the department and to IDA for addressing this issue for everybody. Every property owner. It's not just people who are in subsidized housing, that there are people, you guys open and provided subsidies to tenants that never receive any subsidies, same for IDA. So in a way, people appreciate that the government is there for them because they have never asked anything from the government in terms of their operations. So I keep emphasizing this is an opportunity to recognize what the Department of Housing and IDA has done for the entire population, for everybody, whether you receive subsidy or not, through a tax credit or subsidized program. They have been there. Unfortunately, the resources are very limited.
Other questions?
I see one from Chris Anderson asking about Pilsen and 606 deconversion ordinance. Is the goal to make this citywide? That is not the goal, Chris. And the reason for that is kind of goes back to the principle I raised, which is displacement happens in different ways. In some neighborhoods, it happens through gentrification. In some neighborhoods, it happens through lack of investment. And in neighborhoods that are suffering from disinvestment, we're not concerned about this kind of conversion in the way that we are in neighborhoods that are experiencing gentrification. We see that the deconversion, the loss of, say, a 3-flat into a higher cost single family home, is a phenomenon that we see displacing folks and losing naturally affordable units in neighborhoods that are experiencing gentrification. It's not one that we see in parts of the city where we're either not seeing that kind of churn or there's a long history of disinvestment in that community. So this is a targeted strategy that we're trying out in places where we're seeing that kind of shift in the housing stock, and therefore the shift in folks who can afford to rent and live in those communities.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Marissa, is some of your team members strategically planning on how they change funding priorities for the different programs? I've gotten the sense like, for example, with your technical assistance in community centers, you're looking at, well, how should these programs be updated, or is there chances for input at this time for how future programming might happen that is different in the future than it was in the past?
So we actually, one of the things that is also on our list for this year is that we are going to be given this list of our principles. We're also going through a process of establishing our mission, vision, values, all of that. With that in mind, we're going through our list of delegate agencies and the contracts and agreements that we have and the duties that they have agreed to perform in a more community-based setting, and really trying to determine, is this the right list of activities? Is there now, given the work we've done to really focus on these priorities, are there things that are missing that are not being covered at the community level that we need to now add or shift, talk to an entity about shifting to a different focus based on, so that's actually also on our list for this year, is to do that kind of analysis internally and with our delegate agencies, or ones that aren't currently a delegate agency, but maybe should be. And an example of how, work shifts over time, we're now funding the Lawyers Committee for Better Housing to do, they've staffed up, and I think someone from there may be on this call, they've staffed up to do, to provide some really important help for tenants that are being locked out illegally of their apartments, or are needing to show under the current rules of the eviction moratorium, are needing to be able to show that in fact they do qualify, and are assisting them with what are the relevant documents and so on. So it's an example of where we've shifted our support for that entity given what's going on in this moment.
And I will ask a question similar, not unlike the one that I asked Kristen, and that is around sort of the balance between new unit production and the preservation of existing housing stock, as we have our older affordable housing units are aging, and I think most of us on the call who own affordable housing are committed to keeping it affordable for the long term, but are nonetheless impacted by, the aging of the buildings, and the need for tuck pointing and different things. And so, how can you talk a little bit about sort of the commitment of the department to around preservation, or the work of the department around preservation?
Yeah, sure. And one thing that immediately comes to mind, but there's a bigger answer than this, is in our last QAP, one of the things that we made clear was when we laid out, we want to see proposals for, and we expect to fund projects across different market types and geographies across the city. And when we're thinking about opportunity areas, we're especially interested in rehabs in those spaces. We're especially interested in taking, in preserving the buildings we already have, because it's so expensive to acquire in those spaces, and making sure we don't lose them, lose their current affordability, or turning them into an affordable housing opportunity. And that's something that we again emphasize through our QAP. I think the other piece of what you're speaking to is a lot of the work of our Assistant Commissioner, Will Edwards, who works deeply in communities with, receivership and restoring existing buildings into productive use and so on. And it's something we're, we're absolutely committed to. I think we can't only look at the production of new units if we're not also looking at avoiding the loss of our existing units. We'll just be running in place if we're not doing both at the same time. We're not going to get net new units if we're not preserving the ones that we already have. So absolutely. And we have a great partnership with CIC in the Preservation Compact, and NHS has been a great, partner in receivership and so on. I think we've just got a great examples around the city of really drawing together to say when we've got a problem, we've got to kind of rally around and make sure we save what we can.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Hey, Marissa,
Hello.
it's Michael
ahead.
Goldberg. It's
Hi,
great to see
Michael.
you. Yeah, great to see you. Thanks for everything you guys are doing. Kristen touched on this a little bit, that the intersection of housing and healthcare, obviously very important during this time of COVID. For a while, I know we were talking to the city about shield housing. And I'm just wondering if there's any updates on what you're thinking about regarding health and housing, COVID, a response from the city around housing, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we are, I need to check as to what the latest on this is, but there is a conversation, with some of your former colleagues and the Department of Family and Support Services and others into exploring this possibility that in this point where we have a lot of buildings that were motels, hotels, who may be deciding that they're actually not going to make it back from this crisis and they're not going to reopen, are those opportunities that we can, I'm just sharing this, Michael, for folks who weren't in the meetings that you and I were in the past, are these opportunities for us to create spaces for transitional housing or immediate needs for folks, both in this moment, but longer term as well. Those talks continue, and still a lot of interest on that on the part of the Department of Family and Support Services and the Department of Public Health and so on. I will also say that we recently changed our, many of you are familiar with, we've had a roof and porch repair program. It's we do a lottery for this. It's heavily oversubscribed, but folks can apply to have, a porch fixed, make it accessible, fix their roof, etc. This year, or last year rather, end of 2020, we put out an RFP that is a much broader platform. It's called the Home Repair Program, and it is actually broadened specifically to include the health of folks within, and not just these external things, which of course are important, but what's going on within the home that it may be impairing the health of their residents. So mold remediation is an example that comes to mind, trying to think much more broadly about what it means for a home to be a healthy place for folks. So it's an example of ways that we're trying to expand on multiple levels, a way that this crisis really forced us and helped us, I think, to work much more closely with our partners at the Department of Public Health.
Great. More questions, comments?
Marissa, Kevin here.
Hey, Kevin.
Thanks for being here.
Good to
I know
be
we
here.
tried to talk the other day and I couldn't get on my meeting with you. I was curious with the growth you mentioned, you I think used the term, the resources coming from the most recent stimulus passed in December could be 3 times the amount for the city of Chicago alone. And are there preliminary thoughts, or what's your approach to designing that next round? I know there's some new rules applying, and if there's ways that we can help with feedback, let us know.
Thank you. Yeah, we're in the midst of trying to figure that out. I just had a call with the Biden transition team that's focused on housing, headed up by Erica Pothig yesterday, with lots of folks from HUD and other leaders of housing departments around the country, giving them feedback about, hey, we need more guidance. What does it mean? Just to give you a quick example, the guidelines for this round seem to say that you need to work with the property owner as well as the tenant to distribute the funds. What we saw in the last round was that cities that went solely through the property owner sometimes had a hard time distributing the dollars when landlords were, in some cases, non-responsive. So what does it mean? In this case, there are guidelines that say if good faith effort has been enacted and a property owner is non-responsive, you can then move on to just working with the tenant and distributing the funds to the tenant. So the question we raised and that I raised to Erica yesterday is, okay, so what counts as a good faith effort? The guidance we got from Treasury was you can send a certified letter, to which we said, we're talking about tens of thousands of landlords. That's not possible. That's not feasible. That's not something we're going to be able to do. So that's just a little glimpse into, you're probably now thinking you're sorry you asked. That's a little glimpse into the well, how do we actually do this, right? That happens when you get this dollar amount and you're trying to figure out the actual ins and outs of it. In the last round, we worked with the Family Independence Initiative, which was fantastic. And at at our peak of movement, they were moving about $2.5 million in rental assistance per week. And we also partnered, and many of you were part of this, with about 15 community-based organizations who distributed part of the resources as well. So they distributed about a quarter of the rental assistance grants, and the city did the rest through our portal. But the goal there, and we absolutely want to reenact this time, the goal there was to say, we know that there are people who are not going to be on their computer logging into the city's portal to access these resources, and that there are people who are instead going to need someone accessing them through a long-standing relationship in their own language. Maybe they don't work with a bank and they're going to need a different way to receive the funds. All of those things are things we really relied on the community-based organizations to do their own proactive outreach. And we're so pleased when and we'll share this publicly soon, but we did a map of kind of where the dollars that we gave out went and where did the dollars go from the community-based organizations. And it was such a great example of why the partnership was important, because the places that we weren't getting was exactly where the community-based organizations were moving the dollars. And so we absolutely want to continue that. We think it's a really important part of making sure that the outreach to particular populations is made and the connection made. So we absolutely want to continue that. We are going to have to figure out a new distribution method, because the Family Independence Initiative is really set up philosophically for income, like universal basic income. It is set up to give income transfers to individuals, not to landlords. And so we're going to have to come up with a whole new system this time, which is a little daunting. And that's part of why we've been talking so regularly with the state and so on, because they have geared up for, a massive numbers in their last round as well. And so we're hoping to work really closely with them.
I'm glad I asked the question.
Go ahead.
I'm glad I asked the question. It's really interesting. And, I just think that listening to you respond to this, I can imagine you, because you're a leader in this, map over, look through the lens with racial equity on how this is distributed and how important these, our bias is is around the strength of the community development corporations and neighborhood organizations. And we really appreciate you recognizing building that network as a win-win value proposition for the city long-term.
You bet.
There's a question in the chat that asks how to find out more information around funding for locals in communities that want to provide and create low-income housing.
Sorry,
I think
I'm not seeing the question. Can you repeat it again, Joy?
it says we have a project that needs funding to create affordable housing in Woodlawn. How can we find out more information around funding in communities that want to provide and create low-income housing?
Okay. I am going to put a link into the chat. So we have a link on the Department of Housing's website where you can request an intake meeting with Department of Housing staff, who will sit down with you and go through your project and what the next steps would be to move it forward. So if you give me just a moment, or people can ask other questions while I'm grabbing that real quick, and then I'll put it in there.
Great. And I'll ask a question. I know that, and I apologize, but maybe just a reiteration. I know that the city is planning a round of 9% low-income housing tax credits sometime during 2021. And I wonder if you can just talk a little bit more about that and timing and when that is expected, and then any priorities that are attached to that funding round.
Sure. So our hope is that we put out, our tentative timeline is that we put out a draft in Q1 and a final June or this summer that's our hope. We wanted to give a fair amount of time between the two because we do anticipate, having gone through the racial equity impact assessment and so on, that we do anticipate that there will be things that will take developers some time to say, okay, if those are the priorities, then I need to think about my projects. I need to think about projects that meet that. And so we're still working on exactly what those are. I do think that, some of the things that you saw in the 2019 QAP are not going to go away in terms of we are committed to funding developments across the geography of the city, across different market types. Some of the basic things around, we're very much looking for things like income averaging so that we are able to get to the lower spectrum of income, as well as just a broad range of income needs rather than just a narrow band of 60%, things of that nature. I think coming out of the REIA, there will be the racial equity impact assessment, there'll be some more specific things as well, but that's generally our timing that we're hoping for.
I have a question or a comment.
Okay, Christopher.
Just one quick comment. There's been a lot of changes, Commissioner, in your department. Would you be open to, I know you're doing the stakeholder meetings, we appreciate those and those are great. Would you be open to maybe doing like a virtual town hall? This is what housing is doing. Meet some of your more senior staff members, let them speak for a few minutes, just get a better idea of who's doing what in your department. I mean, nothing extensive, maybe an hour or so, but just kind of, a virtual, this is what housing is doing, let people sign in, just kind of see the new faces and the new priorities.
Sure. Again, that is what those meetings are that I'm talking about, but happy to talk about if there's an additional or different format for that would be helpful.
Okay.
Okay, great. Other questions, comments? We're really, this has been, I think, a great conversation, and it's such a time of opportunity, but such a time of challenge as well. And I think, trying to stay on that path of, positivity and, creativity and innovation to serve Chicago neighborhoods, I think will be something that all of us will need to, stay focused on. And so if there are no other questions or comments, I want to just give a last call for comments or questions. We have our commissioner here, and we had the executive director of IDA. It's been, a really rich session and very informative. And so I want to thank you very much, Commissioner, for being here and for engaging with members of the Chicago Rehab Network. And, I look forward to working together in the year to come on, in the many opportunities and hopefully additional resources that will come out of the federal government to help serve Chicago neighborhoods better. So thank you very much. And Kevin, I want to give you the opportunity as well to.
Well, I would just agree. I think the meeting's been phenomenal. It's always good to have our commissioner with us. She comes out of our field. I remember our dear friend Teresa Prim came to me in one of our training sessions in the empowerment series when you were appointed, Marissa, and when Kristen Faust was appointed. She said, we finally have people from our field in the House and leadership. It was just a great feeling, and we really respect your work. I mentioned to you, and I'll say it to everyone, it was very impressive how you took the reins by the horn and just really led a very important role of dealing with COVID in the housing front and made stuff happen. I'm interested in E-Ramp, but I'm not going to go talk to you about that now. I'd just like to say thanks much. We look forward to collaborating. We believe housing's fundamental, as you know. I don't need to tell you about our mission and how we believe it's foundational to all our aspirations in a democratic society, which I know for all of us, it is something much more precious, and we have to keep in mind how we build societies in our communities so that there's equity, fairness, and justice. So with that, I just want to give a final shout out to my colleague, Rachel. It's her birthday today.
Aw, happy birthday, Rachel.
She's really been a part of making this, along with our board and all the members, an organization that's just had a great trajectory of trying to make sure we have the resources for neighborhoods through the leadership of our communities and people in the CDCs and with government and the financial community. So let's have a great 2021.
Great. And so thanks, Commissioner. We do still have things on the agenda. Kevin, unless you're wrapping it up there.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Really glad to be able to join you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay.
Look forward to working together.
You too.
Peace.
So Kevin, I know we have a few other key policy initiatives on our agenda, so I want to move us into that
Sure.
part of the agenda. We'll try to be efficient, but there is quite a bit of information to share, and then we'll wrap up the meeting. Go ahead.
Listen, I think that the key policy initiatives, I just wanted to have that list. We constantly grow what we attend to because that's the nature of the field. But the Illinois Affordable Housing Tax Credit needs to be renewed because it sunsets December 31st, 2021. You heard that's how Kristen Faust started the meeting, how important that is to our work and to the field of affordable housing. You heard the second point is the ARO and the AHOF. The AHOF is the Affordable Housing Opportunities Fund, which is where the in lieu of fees go. And half of that has gone to fund the Low Income Housing Trust Fund, for example, 50%. The in lieu of fees fund AHOF, Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund, and it's raised approximately, we'll see in the next quarterly report, $200 million. We recognize the importance of the commissioner's previous statements about breaking the bonds of segregated neighborhoods, and that's what they want to do with ARO. We just also recognize there's a lot of programming that they're doing with that in lieu of fee. So we got to balance those two things until other resources are available. We are constantly, historically, about property tax relief. There are a couple bills coming into the General Assembly by for the next this coming spring. They have some relief. They don't have the relief to the nonprofit CDC that we'd like. So we'll be back in touch about those. The third piece is this appraisal gap policies and resources is something that we've been happy to work with NHS and all our partners and members about thinking through what can we do to address the lack of access to credit and investment in the south and west side of our city and region. There needs to be solutions. We did have a meeting with the Attorney General himself about this. That's something that we'll continue to work on. And then the expanding and preserving shared ownership housing, that's about the cooperative model. And that's a program that we've been fortunate to launch with the Chicago Community Loan Fund with Calvin and Bob and team over there, looking at how do we support the governance of cooperative housing models so that people can have the assurance that they can get the type of investments they want. A lot of work. You heard Kristen Faust mention that that's something she's going to be looking into, and that is something that we have been on message about is we need government to recognize this particular housing option needs to be preserved and grown. So those are things that we're constantly discussing with, along with our training, capacity building. It's just been going great. There's people on the call today from the class. It's just been really dynamic, and we're going to be picking that up in 2021. And just so you people know, if you're not familiar with the Rehab Network, one of our reports is about the city's quarterly report. And it will be coming out very soon for the third quarter. And we always want to share that with you. Please sign up if you haven't to get our network news and other communications. Stay healthy.
Great.
And be well.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up our meeting unless anybody has any questions or comments. Great. Okay. So to a really great beginning of 2021 in community development, and try not to become disenchanted with some of the less positive things going on in our country today, and to look forward. And I look forward to seeing everyone and to eventually seeing you all in person. Take care. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Bye. Peace.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Teresa.
La